Hello there, and welcome back to the Sleep Science. You stand on the edge of a golden desert, where the wind whispers through sun-bleached bones of time. Sand curls around your ankles, the sun dips low, and every dune looks like it might be hiding something it shouldn't. Something old, something lost, something that was never meant to be found. You breathe in that dry, ancient air and feel the faintest tremble beneath your soles, not from tectonic plates, but from the weight of secrets buried deeper than any pharaoh's tomb. You probably won't survive this, but not for the reason you think. It's not a curse or a collapse or the heat stroke creeping in from the corners of your vision. It's curiosity. Curiosity is the killer here. You've stepped into a world where what we know might not be all there is. And once you let that possibility in, the real danger begins. You start seeing the cracks in everything. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sand underfoot doesn't feel quite right. It's too fine, too warm, too aware. You trudge forward anyway, drawn toward a jagged outcrop half swallowed by dune and time. It's not on any map. The camel driver who dropped you off refused to go near it. Just muttered something in a language you don't speak and turned back toward the horizon like it owed him money. But here it is, stone blocks, half visible, scorched by sun and stained by centuries. Not shaped like anything in Egyptian architecture textbooks. The angles are wrong, too sharp, too exact. There's a geometry here that feels surgical, clean, like the ruins want to be found. As you brush away the sand, you notice the carvings. They're worn, but not random. Spirals, interlocking curves. A kind of pattern that reminds you more of circuit boards than hieroglyphs. Something about it seems out of sync. You've seen this kind of motif before, just not in this part of the world, and not from this millennium. Historians still argue whether sites like this are just regional anomalies or evidence of something older that predated the cultures we give credit to. Every so often, someone digs up a rock with markings no one can read, and suddenly a bunch of tweed jackets in conference rooms start arguing about whether the Phoenicians were time travelers. You step deeper into the ruin, where the temperature drops by at least 10 degrees. There's a hush, like the desert itself is holding its breath. In one corner, you see what looks like a basin, almost like a ceremonial well, except it's not connected to any water source. Inside the basin is a black stone, cold, smooth, and humming faintly beneath your fingertips. Maybe it's volcanic, maybe it's metallic, or maybe it's something in between, something forged in a way we've forgotten how to do. That wouldn't be the first time. Ancient metallurgical skills have turned up in places they shouldn't, like Damascus steel in the Iron Age, or those ultra-pure copper tools found in Michigan that nobody wants to talk about. A lizard darts past your foot. You flinch, not because of the lizard, but because when it scurries across the stone floor, it disturbs a symbol in the dust, a circle intersected by a vertical line. A glyph you saw once on a ruin in South America, which is, not near here. Coincidence? Sure. It always starts as a coincidence until it's not. One mainstream theory says civilizations developed independently around the world, separated by oceans and millennia. That makes sense. Kind of. Until you start noticing the similarities. The way cultures on every continent built pyramids, developed star maps, told stories of sky gods, and aligned their temples with the solstices. Makes you wonder if someone had a blueprint, and if they shared it before they vanished. The fringe crowd has always whispered about it. Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu. Pick your lost continent. The idea that before Egypt, before Sumer, before even Göbekli Tepe, there was something else. A civilization so ancient its traces are now mistaken for natural rock formations or dismissed entirely as misdated flukes. You know, the stuff they scoff at in archaeology grad school. But here's the thing, the Sahara wasn't always dry. A few thousand years ago it was lush, teeming with lakes, rivers, even hippos. Cave paintings show swimmers, in what's now the driest place on Earth. Historians still argue whether that climatic shift buried whole societies or just made life inconvenient. Either way, it's not impossible that something significant got swallowed in that shift. You lean against one of the stones, catching your breath. The rock is warm, but it shouldn't be. The sun set 20 minutes ago. It's almost like something inside the stone is generating heat, or memory. A soft breeze sighs through the ruin, stirring dust into the air. It smells sweet, not decay, not old stone, something floral, faint but intentional, like incense burned in ceremony. And then, just as you're about to write it off as an overactive imagination brought on by dehydration and sleep deprivation, you find the inscription, tucked behind a broken pillar, faintly glowing under the last blush of twilight. A humanoid figure, arms outstretched, flanked by what looks like two satellites. Not birds, not halos, satellites. You blink, laugh softly, probably misinterpreting, probably a crown or an elaborate headdress. Still, it gives you goosebumps. And here's a kicker for your thoughts as you settle into sleep. The oldest known temple on Earth, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, is over 11,000 years old. Built before writing, before agriculture, before wheels, and the carvings on its pillars, animals, stars, abstract symbols no one's cracked yet. It was deliberately buried, preserved for some reason, almost like they knew we'd need it later. So if that existed, what else might have? Out here, under these stars, surrounded by sand and silence, it's hard not to feel like you've stumbled onto something too big to name. Something old and clever and possibly watching you even now. Sleep well. You wake, or maybe you never really fell asleep, curled beside the black stone, your fingers still brushing the strange warmth of its surface. The desert around you hasn't changed, but it feels heavier now. You sit up slowly, joints stiff, the eerie quiet pressing into your ears like cotton. That ruin wasn't a dream. The lines etched into the walls, the scent of something half-remembered, the satellite-headed figure, it's all still here. You wander back to the stone outcrop, following a trail of glyphs that seem to deepen in complexity the longer you look at them. Some swirl like galaxies, others repeat in a structured rhythm that almost resembles code. Not binary, exactly, more like a prehistoric programming language carved with flint and obsession. And then you see it. Not far from the basin, a wall, smooth, black, oddly reflective, buried in sand but peeking out just enough for your gut to tell you, this doesn't belong here. Not just because it's alien to the setting, but because it shouldn't exist in the timeline we've agreed on. You brush it clean with your sleeve. The surface isn't just polished, it's molecularly smooth, like it was cut by a diamond-tipped machine guided by software. And it's not obsidian, it's something else. Something modern, or rather, postmodern. What you're touching could have come out of a high-tech lab last year, or from an unknown civilization 20,000 years ago. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. There are ruins on this planet that don't fit. Take Pumapunku, for instance, a site in Bolivia where enormous stone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, were carved and stacked with such precision that you couldn't slide a credit card between them. Not chiseled roughly, cut with smooth, machine-like symmetry. Some of the H-shaped stones there seem mass-produced, as if stamped in a factory line. Historians still argue whether ancient tools could have achieved this, or whether we're missing something bigger. Maybe they didn't use tools like ours. Maybe they didn't need them. You step away from the black wall and scan the horizon. The sun is up now, slouching behind a haze of wind-blown grit. You shield your eyes and spot a small rise nearby, just a soft bump in the sand. It could be nothing. But then again, everything out here could be nothing or everything. So you trudge over, feet sinking softly with each step, until your toes nudge something solid. You kneel, dig, and reveal the corner of another structure. This one isn't stone, it's metal. Corroded, yes, but unmistakably alloyed. Brassy green and steel blue, almost like it's made of multiple substances fused at the atomic level. Nobody knows how ancient people could have worked with metals at this level of complexity. The standard timeline says metallurgy advanced slowly, from copper to bronze to iron. But every now and then, someone unearths a dagger or figurine that throws that whole timeline into chaos. Like the Antikythera mechanism. Recovered from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece, this intricate device dates back to around 100 BCE. It contains more than 30 bronze gears, designed with precision we didn't think possible until the 18th century. A kind of ancient analog computer that could predict eclipses and planetary movements. Historians still argue whether it was a one-off, or if it represents an entire lost tradition of mechanical science. Now imagine finding something like that, but buried under the Sahara, in a ruin that predates the pyramids. And imagine it's still humming faintly. You brush more sand away and expose what looks like a paneled dark glass framed by metal ridges. You tap it just to feel it. And you swear, for a moment it glows. Just a soft pulse like the last breath of a long dead star. You lean in closer, half expecting it to speak, but all you get is silence. Heavy, loaded, ancient silence. So what if some forgotten civilization had mastered a kind of technology we don't even recognize as technology anymore? What if their machines weren't built of wires and screws, but of stone, sound, and resonance? It's not as wild as it sounds. Take the ancient use of sound in construction. Stories abound of huge stones lifted not with cranes but with chanting. Tibetan monks are said to have used sound to levitate stones up mountainsides. Fringe idea, sure, but weirdly, no one can explain exactly how some of the megaliths around the world were moved into place. Baalbek in modern-day Lebanon holds a stone platform where several blocks, each over 1,000 tons, were perfectly aligned. For context, that's heavier than a fully loaded Boeing 747. Historians still argue whether ancient Romans moved them, or just built on top of an even older structure they didn't understand. The idea isn't that these people had iPads or solar panels. It's that they might have thought in entirely different paradigms. Maybe they didn't invent things we invent. Maybe they tuned the world to their needs instead, using materials, energies, and frequencies we've long forgotten how to feel, let alone manipulate. You sit down again beside the partially uncovered panel, your fingertips tracing its edges. A breeze picks up, carrying a wisp of sand into the air. It swirls into the sunlight like glitter, and for a moment, you almost see the shape of something standing in the dune haze, a figure tall and robed, holding a tool that hums. Gone as fast as it appeared. Could be a heat mirage, or maybe your brain's just trying to connect dots it shouldn't. But if you close your eyes, you can almost hear it, the hum of a civilization that never made it into the history books, a whisper in a language that never got written down, a legacy that doesn't want to be rediscovered, at least not by accident. As the sun climbs higher and the heat presses down, you feel like you're standing on the threshold of a door, one no one's opened in thousands of years, one someone might have closed on purpose. Sleep science says dreams help you process the unknown. But what if the world itself is dreaming, and you just rolled over into its memory? You press your palm against the half-buried panel one more time before stepping back. It doesn't light up again. No secret message, no ancient hologram, no welcome back, guardian moment. But the silence it leaves in your mind feels reverent, like you just touched something sacred or maybe just really dangerous. You wander now, following no map, no path, just letting your feet move while your thoughts tangle themselves into loops. That's the thing about this mystery. It doesn't lead in straight lines. It spirals. Every answer opens a door to 3 new questions, and each one whispers something you're not sure you're supposed to hear. Eventually, you crest another dune, and that's when you see them. Ruins. But not like the ones before. This isn't just one structure half drowned in sand. This is a complex. Dozens of jagged forms poking from the earth like a shattered crown. Some are toppled, some half-buried, some almost pristine. And none of it matches any known culture. No obelisks, no sphinxes, no Roman columns or Grecian pediments. Instead, the architecture is alien in its logic. Tall, narrow towers, ramps that seem to serve no purpose, rooms that open into nothing but sky, and right in the middle, the largest structure, half pyramid, half dome, coated in blackened mineral deposits. It looks burned, like it went up in flame once long ago. You make your way toward it, wind stirring your scarf as you pass what might be a toppled pillar, or a cannon, or both. Again, the shapes aren't clear. Everything here seems just slightly off, as if made by people who thought in geometry we never learned. Angles that make your head hurt if you stare too long. Curves that almost seem to shift when you're not looking. And then something stops you. A statue. Or what's left of one. It stands maybe 8 feet tall, humanoid in form but with exaggerated proportions. A narrow waist, elongated arms, and an oversized skull that slopes smoothly back like an aerodynamic helmet. The face is worn smooth, deliberately it seems, but its pose is unmistakable. One hand held out, palm facing you. A warning, or a welcome. Mainstream archaeologists would say erosion, or pareidolia. You know, seeing patterns in randomness. But you can't shake the sense that this thing was built to be seen right now, in this light by you. Weird coincidence, sure. Just like the Dogon people of Mali, coincidentally, knew about the invisible star Sirius B before astronomers confirmed it with modern telescopes. Historians still argue whether they got that knowledge from contact with ancient scholars or something more unusual. You walk past the statue and into the central structure. The doorway isn't carved, it's melted, as if opened by heat or plasma or something with no name in any language you know. Inside, it's dark but dry, no sand, no debris. Just long corridors lined with smooth panels and curious recesses. You run your fingers along the wall. The material is not stone, not metal, some kind of composite. It gives ever so slightly to the touch, then rebounds, like memory foam from another dimension. And then you spot it. On the far wall, an image. Not a painting, not a carving, a kind of relief etched into the wall itself. It's a world map, but not like any you've ever seen. Continents are shaped oddly, stretched or compressed, and in the middle of the Atlantic there's land. A large landmass, mountain ranges, rivers, cities marked in elegant symbols. Atlantis. Probably not, but something. A memory fossilized in architecture. You remember the Piri Rise map, created in 1513. It includes parts of Antarctica, accurately drawn, even under the ice. Which is odd, since Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until the 19th century, and satellite imagery didn't confirm those ice-free coastal outlines until much later. Historians still argue whether the map was copied from older sources. If so, those sources would have to be very old. And this map, this one etched on the wall before you, it predates Piri Rise by a few thousand years at minimum. That's the moment when the air changes. It's subtle, like someone just opened a door miles away and let in a different pressure. You feel it in your ears first, then your stomach, then your spine. You turn slowly and see the writing. It's not hieroglyphs, not cuneiform, not runes or pictographs. It's something else entirely. Tall vertical lines, repeating geometric shapes, a script that looks like it was meant to be sung, not spoken. You don't recognize a single character, but you feel like you understand the tone of it. Somehow, it reads like a eulogy. A goodbye from a people who knew they were disappearing. The fringe theories call it the precursor collapse, the idea that a highly advanced civilization once flourished on Earth, only to vanish in some global cataclysm. Floods, asteroid impacts, solar flares. Maybe they left behind knowledge encoded in myth. Maybe they tried to warn us. And maybe we've been stumbling over their graves for centuries, mistaking their tombs for natural rock. You step back out into the light, blinking as the sun hits your face again. The complex stretches around you, silent and still, but now it feels different, less like a ruin, more like a message, one you were never meant to find. Or maybe one you were always meant to. As you start back toward your camp, one thought follows you like a shadow. What else did they leave behind? And why did they need to hide it? You're not even halfway to your makeshift camp when you see it again. The circle with a vertical line, that same symbol scratched in the dust by the lizard earlier. Except this time it's carved into a boulder, partially eroded but unmistakably deliberate. And it's not alone. Beside it, another symbol and another, forming a sequence like a sentence or perhaps coordinates. You crouch down, tracing them with a finger. They feel recent, not fresh, but somehow more preserved than the others. Like they were sealed in this desert heat, waiting for one moment of discovery. The strange thing is, this sequence of symbols shows up all over the world. That vertical line through a circle motif, it's been found etched into stones in Scotland, scrawled onto bark in Papua New Guinea, and hidden in ceramics dug from pre-Columbian tombs in Central America. Different cultures, different centuries, same mystery. Historians still argue whether these are shared archetypes of the human subconscious or traces of a civilization that wandered further than any record admits. You sit back, shielding your eyes against the morning glare. If they left marks like this all over the globe, what does that mean about their reach? Time to zoom out. Think of the Earth not as it is now, but how it was 12,000 years ago. Sea levels were lower by more than 400 feet. Entire coastlines, perhaps cities, are now underwater. The end of the last ice age didn't just melt glaciers, it may have erased evidence. Take Doggerland, once a lush land bridge between Britain and mainland Europe, now buried beneath the North Sea. Divers have recovered tools, bones, even mammoth tusks down there. And that's just the tip of the submerged iceberg. And then there's the Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan, a massive underwater stone structure that looks suspiciously architectural. Step-like terraces, flat plains, sharp right angles. Mainstream archaeologists call it a natural formation. Others insist it's a sunken city. Historians still argue whether nature could have carved something so clean, so precise, while also accidentally aligning it with the stars. Maybe your mystery civilization didn't vanish into the sand. Maybe it sank. You imagine them now, builders, navigators, dreamers with star maps in their minds, constructing monumental sites along coastlines that no longer exist, trading across continents that had not yet been chopped up by tectonic drama. Maybe they didn't see the coming flood until it was too late. Or maybe they did and left messages for the survivors. Like the ones you're following now. The symbols lead you around a rock outcrop to a flat plateau where something strange happens. The wind stops, dead still. Even the sand falls flat as if gravity is more committed here. In the center of the plateau sits a ring of stones, just under knee height, each spaced with infuriating precision. You've seen Stonehenge photos, of course, but this is smaller, rougher, older. And yet the alignment gives you goosebumps. You check your compass, classic move, and of course, the needle spins uselessly. Magnetic anomaly, possibly, or something buried deep beneath the rock pulsing faintly. You kneel beside one of the stones. There's that vertical line circle again, etched on the side. But now it's joined by a starburst symbol and something like a hand. You don't know what any of it means, but you feel it. A kind of internal tug. Ancient stone circles are everywhere, hundreds across Europe, Asia, and even the Americas. Some date back as far as 7000 BCE. Some are calendars, some are graves, some are just confusing. Historians still argue whether these sites were linked by cultural diffusion, parallel development, or something else entirely. You know, like a single guiding influence. One theory gaining quiet traction in the back corners of academia is the architect hypothesis. It suggests a lost civilization acted as a template distributor, leaving fragments of their design ethos in every corner of the world. Not just symbols, but methods, a way of thinking, sacred geometry, measured alignments, acoustic tuning. It's not that other cultures copied them, but that they were taught by visitors who vanished before history began. You lie back against the warm stone and look up. The sky is blazing blue, but your mind's already floating higher. What if those teachers were travelers? Not necessarily from space, though that's a fun campfire theory, but travelers of time or of knowledge. What if they emerged after a cataclysm, shared what they knew, and then faded out when their job was done? You close your eyes. In the quiet, the hum returns. Not a sound, a presence, like a vibration in the back of your skull, not threatening, just aware. And for a moment, just a blink of a moment, you see it. Not the desert. A jungle. Thick green, choking with vines and ancient moisture, monkeys howling, birds you don't recognize, and through the canopy, towers, black and shining, covered in the same symbols you've been chasing. Then it's gone. You sit up, heart pounding, the heat pressing in again. What was that? A memory? A warning? Or maybe just a deeply inconvenient hallucination? You take one last look at the circle of stones, the alignments too perfect, the materials too refined. There's a message encoded in this place, even if you can't read it yet. But someone could. Someone once did. And they left this behind not just for curiosity, but maybe for survival. You press your fingers to the circle and whisper, "What happened to you?" The wind returns finally. And it feels like an answer. You descend from the plateau, your boots trailing soft divots in the sand, each step scattering memories that might not even be yours. That jungle vision, real or imagined, clings to the back of your mind like mist. You've never been to a rainforest, and yet the shape of those towers felt familiar. Not the sight of them, but the intent. Like whoever built them shared the same blueprint as the desert ruins you've just left behind. Pyramids. They're everywhere. You don't need to squint at a conspiracy board to know the basic stats. Egypt, obviously. Mesoamerica, of course. But also Sudan, Indonesia, China, where the government's been surprisingly silent about those mysterious earthen mounds scattered across the Xi'an province. Some are enormous, symmetrical, buried under trees that look suspiciously like camouflage. Historians still argue whether these structures developed independently or from shared origin. That's the polite academic way of saying, nobody knows what's going on and we're all faking it with confidence. The problem isn't their existence, it's their purpose. Some were tombs, others ceremonial centers, maybe observatories, or maybe we're reading the wrong instructions altogether. You stand at the base of a small rise now, sweat sliding down your back, watching the sun cast a long triangular shadow from a half-crumbled mound just ahead. It's not grand, barely taller than a 3-story building, but its slope and angle, suspiciously familiar. Another pyramid, not built of limestone or granite this time, but of some reddish stone, eroded and sun-pitted. Still standing, though. That counts for something. You climb, slipping once, brushing your hands against weather-worn glyphs half swallowed by moss. Moss, in a desert. You blink, rub your eyes, and confirm. Yeah, that's definitely not supposed to be growing here. A little patch clinging to the shady side of the stone, damp and green, like it never got the memo about rainfall stats. At the top, you find a flat platform. No apex. Just a clean square of sun-warmed stone with a shallow depression in the center, roughly manhole-sized. You lean over it, half expecting to see darkness or snakes or maybe just more sand. But it's dry and deep, so deep that the bottom doesn't reflect back. You drop a pebble in. No sound. No echo. Nothing. Could be illusion, could be tech, could be a metaphor, doesn't matter. What matters is this: the pyramid was not built for death. This wasn't a tomb. There are no coffins, no chambers, no wall art praising deities with animal heads. Instead, there's geometry, precision, purpose. But what purpose? You think of Teotihuacan, the city of the gods in Mexico. Its main thoroughfare, the Avenue of the Dead, is flanked by massive pyramids aligned not with the cardinal directions, but with the setting of a specific star. Modern measurements show the Pyramid of the Sun aligns almost perfectly with sunrise on specific equinoxes. Not accidental, not aesthetic. And here now you look up. The platform you're standing on, aligned. Not to the modern north, but to something. The kind of alignment that would have made sense if the stars were in different positions, which they were, say, 10 or 15,000 years ago. Historians still argue whether early humans could track the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle that shifts the positions of stars across the sky. But you're starting to think the real question isn't could they, but why would they? Because that kind of knowledge doesn't just help you grow crops, it helps you rebuild after cataclysm, after floods, after fire. A civilization clinging to survival would watch the skies with religious dedication. And when the stars started to shift, they'd know what was coming next. You look again into the hole, still nothing. Just a whisper of cold air rising, like the earth itself is sighing. You back away, brushing sand off your palms, and start a slow circuit of the pyramid. Halfway down one side, you find it, a symbol carved into the wall, nearly erased by wind. It's not just the circle and line this time. It's more detailed, a map, a calendar. You run your fingers over it, counting. 13 divisions. A spiral within a square within a triangle. You've seen this kind of structure before, in Mayan codices, in Cambodian temple floor plans, even in Stone Age art, if you tilt your head and stop pretending ancient humans were stupid. It's the same math, same ratio, same silence. You feel something shift behind you, just the wind, probably. You whisper under your breath, why the pyramids? The answer isn't thunderous. It doesn't shake the ground or echo from below. It just arrives as though your brain didn't invent it but remembered it. Because they were never just buildings, they were machines. Not in the blinking lights, steam valves sense, but in the way cathedrals focus sound, the way domes amplify whispers, the way certain stones vibrate when exposed to just the right frequencies. Resonance. These structures weren't built to be looked at. They were built to be used, maybe for energy, maybe for communication, maybe to stabilize something we've long forgotten how to measure. You think of Nikola Tesla muttering about Earth's frequencies, of that mysterious humming sound some people hear at night in certain parts of the world, of the way some pyramids, when struck by seismic waves, emit frequencies in exact harmonic multiples. The mainstream explanation, coincidence. You're not buying it anymore. You finish your circle around the base and see, tucked into the sand, a small metallic object, not buried, just resting there like someone placed it gently. You pick it up. It's warm, and it pulses faintly in your palm. No gears, no moving parts, just smooth, seamless metal shaped almost like a tuning fork or maybe a key. To what you have no idea. But if the pyramid is a machine, maybe now you're holding its ignition switch. You don't move for a while, just crouch there in the heat staring at this object in your palm, a sliver of metal, impossibly smooth, gently pulsing like it has a heartbeat. It feels heavier than it should, not by weight but by implication, like you're holding a fragment of a question so old, even time has forgotten the answer. A key or a tool, or maybe both. It doesn't click or twist. It doesn't react when you tap it against the pyramid wall or whisper any of the usual sci-fi passwords. Open Sesame, for the record, does absolutely nothing. But it feels important. And if your instinct's right, and lately, your instincts have been winning against logic, then this piece doesn't belong in isolation. It's part of a set, maybe a network, like a wireless node in some ancient system waiting to be powered on again. So you pocket it carefully, reverently, and you descend. The desert stretches out, wide and bright and disinterested in your revelations. You squint against the sun. Everything ahead shimmers, but something new catches your eye, a dark line running along the sand in the distance. Not a shadow, not a mirage. A road. You walk toward it, the heat rising around you in waves. As you get closer, you realize it's not just any path, it's paved. Not with asphalt or concrete, but with fitted stone slabs, worn smooth by time and maybe traffic. The kind of traffic that predates wheels. Again, the craftsmanship here is baffling. The stones are cut in irregular interlocking shapes like a dry puzzle. No mortar, no filler, just geometric genius and gravity holding them in place. You've seen something like this before in the Inca walls of Cusco and Ollantaytambo. Stones so precisely cut, even earthquakes couldn't shake them loose. Historians still argue whether the Inca inherited these techniques from an older, unnamed culture. Because modern attempts to replicate that kind of stonework, so far, nothing close. You kneel and trace the edges of one slab. The way it fits into the next is mechanical, like it was modeled in CAD software thousands of years before CAD was a glint in anyone's spreadsheet. And then you find the mark, etched faintly near the corner of one slab, half covered in wind-blown grit, the vertical line and circle again. Your mystery civilization keeps leaving breadcrumbs. You follow the road. It doesn't stretch far, just a few hundred feet before vanishing into what looks like a collapsed hillside. But just before the cave-in, there's a structure. Squat, square, low to the ground like a bunker. No door, just an open entry and walls thick enough to withstand centuries. You step inside and once again the temperature drops. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. Enough to signal insulation or maybe design. Inside there are no carvings, no altars, Just more of those fitted stones and a strange ring of indentations in the floor, evenly spaced and cleanly bored, as if something once stood here held by sockets, machinery perhaps, statues, or maybe more chilling people. Ritual or technology. Hard to tell the difference when both involve circles, vibrations, and the complete suspension of common sense. You take out the metal piece again, hold it over the center of the ring. It pulses harder, then steadies. No light, no sound, but something shifts in the air like pressure dropping or static crackling on the edge of a thunderstorm. You hold your breath, but nothing else happens. Still, it's confirmation. This key, or whatever it is, was made for this place, or a place just like it. And if you found one, there must be others. You step back outside. The sun's lower now, slouching toward the horizon like a tired god. The road behind you disappears into shadow. Ahead, the desert begins to darken, but something glows in the distance. You squint. Not fire, not moonlight. Glass, glinting at the edge of a rock formation, reflecting a cool, unnatural blue. You head toward it. As you approach, the terrain shifts subtly. The sand is thinner here, crustier, like you're walking over an ancient seabed or the roof of something buried. The glass-like glint resolves into a sheet, not a mirror, not ice, a kind of panel, translucent and crystalline, cracked in places but still intact. Embedded in the rock face like a forgotten window. You crouch, brushing away debris. The panel flickers. Just once, a faint shimmer across its surface, then silence. Okay. So maybe your key's not compatible with this terminal, or maybe this one's been dead too long. Still, the shape, the angle, the material, none of it matches any known civilization in this region. And it's not just that it looks futuristic. It looks wrong for its setting. Like someone transplanted a piece of a space station into a Bronze Age diorama and hoped no one would notice. You run a hand along the edge of the panel. It hums, softly, not from your touch but from inside, as if some residual charge still lingers, waiting for a better battery or a more patient user. Then you remember something, an old story from India passed down in Sanskrit. The Vimanas, flying chariots said to be powered by engines fueled by mercury and vibrations. Descriptions from thousands of years ago that sound suspiciously like aircraft or spacecraft. Historians still argue whether these stories were symbolic, spiritual, or literal. And now here you are, kneeling in front of a buried panel that hums when you touch it, holding a piece of metal that pulses in your palm, standing in the ruins of a desert that wasn't supposed to have any secrets left. Maybe you're not the first to find these places. Maybe others did too and were dismissed or disappeared. Because what you're uncovering isn't just architecture, it's infrastructure, evidence of a system, a network of sites across deserts, jungles, seafloors, built by people with knowledge we've long since misplaced. Not a culture, a civilization. And if they were advanced enough to design energy-generating pyramids, acoustically tuned temples, and resilient global stonework, then they were advanced enough to make a choice. To be forgotten, or to leave just enough behind for someone curious enough to go looking. You stand again, brushing sand from your knees, and stare out over the growing darkness. The panel has gone still, but you swear on the very edge of hearing, you can make out a sound now. A faint rhythm, like something buried is waking up. The sound haunts you now. It isn't loud, barely more than a suggestion, but it follows you as you move through the darkening desert. A slow, rhythmic thrum, like a mechanical heartbeat or distant thunder that never rolls closer. just there, persistent, patient. You keep walking. Stars begin to blink awake overhead, indifferent to your little existential unraveling. The Milky Way stretches above you like a wound in the sky, and suddenly you're not just surrounded by sand, you're floating in a sea of time. All those stars, all those civilizations. Maybe some of them watched these same stars and wondered if they were alone. Maybe some of them knew they were. You turn around, one last glance at the panel buried in the cliffside. Still dark, still silent, but it saw you. That much you're sure of. The terrain shifts again under your feet. Less sand now, more stone. You're walking across exposed bedrock, pockmarked and cracked, but clearly worked by human, or maybe not quite human hands. And there, etched shallowly across its surface, you spot it, the same pattern again. Circle, line, starburst. This time it's part of a larger design, a sprawling sequence like a flowchart or circuit diagram. You kneel and follow it with your eyes, then your fingertips. Each shape seems connected to another by grooves worn into the stone, like some kind of long-forgotten data map. It spirals outward until it forms a rough outline of the globe, or at least a globe-shaped world. And on that map, markers, not cities, nodes. You trace one that seems centered on your current location. Another sits where the Atlantic would be, maybe where Atlantis was imagined to sink. Another near Antarctica, the Himalayas, Easter Island. The coordinates aren't exact, but the intent is unmistakable. Whoever made this map wasn't marking borders. They were marking energy centers. Now the thrum makes more sense. You're standing on an ancient grid. And if you believe even half of what fringe researchers say, Earth has a skeleton, a network of ley lines, energetic highways that connect sacred sites across the globe. They say the pyramids, Stonehenge, Angkor Wat, and Machu Picchu all sit on these lines. Historians still argue whether the ancients knew this and built accordingly, or whether we're just seeing patterns because we desperately need to believe there was order. But what if it wasn't coincidence? What if the builders of these places didn't discover the lines? They installed them. What if these ancient sites weren't just sacred? They were functional. You imagine a world 10 or 20,000 years ago, wired like a circuit board, pyramids as transmitters, stone circles as receivers, each node humming with resonance, tied not by geography but by frequency. And maybe that's why they're still humming now. You sit back on your heels, staring up at the stars again, and your mind drifts to something oddly mundane: airport hubs. Think about it, not all airports are equal. Some are tiny, forgotten, a single runway in the middle of nowhere. Others, major hubs, they hum with activity, routes flowing in and out like arteries. Now picture Earth's surface with that same logic. Most of it is quiet, but certain places, certain nodes, they buzz, always have. Maybe that's why people keep rediscovering the same sacred spots. Maybe they call to us. And then you remember something else. The acoustics in these ancient structures. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example. Not only does it align perfectly with true north, but its king's chamber resonates at a specific frequency, around 440 Hz, the same tone as the A note in modern music. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you consider that multiple ancient sites have similar resonant properties, well, the air starts to feel a bit denser, doesn't it? Some researchers have even recorded M-field anomalies around these sites. Tiny surges, magnetic pulses, flickers of energy that don't match the surrounding area. Historians still argue whether these readings are real or just equipment glitching in weird environments. But if you hold that metal object in your palm again, yes, that one pulls in quietly in your pocket and just stands still. It sinks. The rhythm matches the background thrum. 1 2 1 2 pause 1. You feel it in your rib cage. This isn't magic. This is physics, or some flavor of it we haven't cataloged yet. You walk forward, following the direction the grooves seem to point. Ahead, the desert rises again in a gentle swell, and at the summit, half buried in sand, sits a monolith. You laugh because, of course, it's a monolith. Tall, black, seamless, and shaped suspiciously like the ones from your favorite dystopian sci-fi films. Except this one is chipped. At the base, a corner has cracked off, revealing the interior. Not solid stone, not metal, something crystalline, layered like fiber optics, but embedded in a matrix you can't identify. And within those layers, tiny etchings, like a microchip, no bigger than a fingernail, no tool marks. Your breath catches. Someone built this, and not with copper chisels or iron picks. They printed it. Nanostructures, embedded in something that's lasted longer than most empires. And suddenly, you're no longer asking what the civilization was. You're asking what we are, if we've been living in the long, quiet aftershock of their passing. You reach out, fingertip grazing the fractured edge. For just a moment, the air shifts again. The sky feels deeper, the stars closer. And then a flash. Not bright, not loud, just a shimmer like heat on metal right in front of your eyes, then it's gone. You blink, startled. But something changed. You feel it, like the planet just exhaled. And maybe, just maybe, something ancient took notice. You don't move, you barely breathe. The shimmer is gone, but its echo lingers in the back of your mind like a half-remembered dream. That flash, it wasn't heat, it wasn't hallucination. It was communication, a blink, a pulse. The way some deep-sea creatures flash bioluminescent signals into the black, hoping someone else blinks back. And maybe something just did. You look again at the monolith, its cracked edge exposed to the elements, the layered crystal still pulsing faintly within. It's old, so impossibly old, but not dead. This wasn't just built to last, it was built to wait. You take a slow step back, feeling the sand shift underfoot, then another and another. No alarms, no holograms, no ancient voice saying you are not authorized to access this interface. Just silence, a silence that somehow feels patient, as if it's thinking. And now finally, so are you. Because the sheer scale of it all is starting to settle in your bones. This isn't a buried temple. This isn't a forgotten outpost. This is one node in a network, and you're standing inside the ruins of something so much bigger than any textbook has dared to suggest. You find a smooth boulder and sit, letting the tension drain from your shoulders, your hand still resting on the object in your pocket. That little tool or beacon or whatever it is hasn't stopped pulsing. And now you realize it's not just sinking to the site, it's sinking to you. Which, raises a few questions. You start retracing your journey in your head. The desert glyphs, the buried panel, the resonance in the stone circles, the pyramid that wasn't a tomb. All of it points in the same direction. Not toward a singular location, but toward a pattern. And suddenly, you think about ancient stories again, not the ones carved into walls, but the ones told around fires, oral traditions, myths, especially the ones that repeat. Flood myths, for instance. You know this one. It's not just Noah and his famous boat-building hustle. The Epic of Gilgamesh has a flood. The ancient Hindu texts describe a great deluge. The Greeks had Deucalion and Pyrrha. The Maya, the Chinese, even Aboriginal Australians, everywhere the story emerges. A great flood wipes the slate clean, and a few chosen survivors carry on the knowledge of a forgotten time. Historians still argue whether these stories stem from shared experience or shared imagination. But if every culture keeps remembering the same disaster, then maybe it wasn't imagination. Maybe it was memory. And maybe it wasn't just about the water. Maybe the flood wasn't the cause of the collapse, but the cover-up. Think about it. If you were part of a global civilization with advanced architecture, complex energy systems, even encoded information embedded in the planet's surface, what would happen if a massive solar flare or comet impact or planet-wide quake took out the infrastructure? The survivors wouldn't rebuild right away. They wouldn't even understand what they lost. And as generations passed, that knowledge would fracture. It would become sacred, mystical, then myth. And finally, legend. You look around at the quiet desert, and for the first time, you realize you might not be looking at ruins from an ancient world. You might be standing in the backstage of our own. Your thoughts drift toward Göbekli Tepe again, the 12,000-year-old site in Turkey that shouldn't exist. Built before agriculture, before writing, before permanent settlements, and yet there it stands. Massive T-shaped pillars, weighing up to 20 tons each, carved with animals and symbols. Not randomly placed, but arranged with astronomical precision. And then it was deliberately buried. Historians still argue whether it was a ritual burial, an act of reverence, or an emergency. Because what if Göbekli Tepe wasn't the first monument, but the last? One final attempt to preserve memory, to lock something into the earth and say, "We were here." The wind kicks up around you now, sifting through sand and thought alike. And you remember another myth, one not about floods, but about builders. The Watchers, the Nephilim, the Shining Ones, the Sky People. Across Mesopotamia, Egypt, Mesoamerica, stories persist of tall beings who came from above and taught architecture, mathematics, astronomy. Not gods, not aliens necessarily, but visitors, outsiders, carriers of knowledge who showed up, shared, and disappeared. Of course, mainstream historians dismiss these as poetic metaphors, literary flourishes from pre-scientific minds trying to make sense of the universe. But then you think about that statue from earlier, the one half buried in the dunes, the one with the elongated skull and the hand held up like a traffic cop in the void. You pull out the metal object again. Still pulsing, still warm. What if the visitors weren't from space, but from before? What if the unknown civilization wasn't an alien race, but a prior human civilization? One that reached unimaginable heights of knowledge, only to fall so far that we forgot they were ever real. And in our forgetting, we labeled their survivors as gods, as angels, as myths. You grip the object tighter and look back at the monolith. Still silent, still watching. Somewhere far off, a jackal howls. Or maybe it's just the wind bouncing off the rocks in the right way to sound like a warning. You stand again. You're not tired anymore. You're charged. Something deep within the earth, within history, within you just shifted. And whether this civilization vanished in fire, water, or its own ambition, one thing is suddenly, painfully clear. It didn't vanish completely. It left echoes. It left markers. It left instructions. And now that you've touched them, they're starting to reassemble. Inside your bones. Inside your dreams. And maybe, just maybe, inside the world again. You walk through the night now. No flashlight, no compass. Just that slow, metronome pulse in your palm, steady and quiet like the universe whispering in Morse code. Above you, the stars scatter and swirl. Below you, the earth seems to listen. Every footstep feels intentional, like you're not choosing where to go, just remembering a path you've already walked 1,000 years ago. And then you see it. At first it's just a dark silhouette on the horizon, a smudge against the starlit sky. But as you get closer, it sharpens into something definite. Stone, not a building, a gateway. Freestanding. No walls, no roof, just two immense pillars flanking a lintel, forming a rectangular archway that leads from nothing to nothing, yet commands the presence of a cathedral. The surface is carved in a strange relief. No human figures, no animals, just curves, spirals, grids, like someone tried to record mathematics as art. You approach slowly, letting your hand brush the pillar as you pass through the threshold. You expect something to happen, lightning, a hum, a dramatic hallucination. But there's just silence, which of course is somehow worse. Because the feeling that washes over you on the other side isn't relief. It's recognition. You've been here before. Not you personally, but us, people, humans. Whatever form we once were before we turned into the version that checks phones every 3 minutes and thinks advanced means a smartwatch that talks back. This place doesn't mark the beginning or end of anything. It marks the turning. The pivot between what came before and what followed. A place that once divided knowledge and legend, and maybe failed to hold the line. You move forward again through low brush and cracked earth. The terrain's changed, less desert, more scrubland, rocky ridges in the distance. A few scattered trees, knotted and old. You pass another marker stone, again the symbol, the vertical line, the circle. But this one includes something new, a glyph shaped like a tree, or maybe a circuit diagram shaped like a tree. Its roots extend downward, but there's something like a mirror image growing up from its crown, inverted, reflective. And just beneath it, a small phrase in unfamiliar script, angular and sharp, but clean. It looks like something that should be translated, but also something that doesn't want to be. You kneel beside it, reach into your pocket, and for the first time, your artifact, your little pulsing piece of not now, changes. It glows. Not a soft internal shimmer this time. A clear, cool blue ring of light encircles the metal's surface, and it starts vibrating faintly, like a phone on silent mode, except it feels more alive. You hold it closer to the glyph, and the air around you tightens. Not colder, not heavier, just more aware, like you've stepped into a conversation that started long before you arrived. Then nothing. The light fades. The pulsing stops. Whatever that was, it's over. But now you know, this object isn't a souvenir. It's a translator. Not just of language, but of space, of memory, of access. Like a key card that works on time itself. You stand and look up at the hills ahead. Nestled between two ridges, half concealed by erosion and time, is a low structure, like a bunker carved into the earth itself. No columns, no flare, just a rectangle, dark and humble. As you approach, the ground begins to vibrate, not strongly, just enough to tell you something inside is not dead. You duck through the low entrance. It opens into a chamber lit by natural moonlight, bouncing in from a narrow shaft overhead. The walls are covered in more of the same script, this time dense, overlapping, like someone kept writing after they'd run out of room. You walk to the far end of the room and find what looks like a table, or maybe an altar. On it, embedded directly into the surface, is a bowl-shaped depression filled with what appears to be sand. But it's not. It's fine, metallic, shimmers like liquid but doesn't flow. You dip your finger in. It doesn't sink. It supports your touch, solid but not hard. Then something rises to the surface. A symbol. The same mirrored tree you saw earlier. You whisper without thinking, "What are you?" And the bowl answers, not in sound, but in image. A vision flickers to life in your mind, not a hallucination, a projection playing directly behind your eyes. You see an ancient world, lush, storm-racked, pulsing with energy. Cities built into cliffs, towers carved from crystal, a sky filled with movement, not aircraft exactly, but structures that seem to float, tethered by forces you can't name. And at the center of it all, a spire, so tall it vanishes into cloud and light. And then, fire, water, collapse. Not war, not plague. Sabotage. Something intentional. Something internal. Then silence. The cities fall, the spire breaks. The symbols are buried. The survivors scatter. And the world forgets. You snap back. The sand bowl is still. The room is still. Your breath echoes against the chamber walls. You understand now why everything feels so scattered, so disconnected. This civilization didn't vanish because it failed. It vanished because it chose to, because it had to. It encoded its knowledge in the earth, in stone, in myth, in alignments, and seeded its memory like pollen, hoping some of it would take root again. In stories, in structures, in you. That tickle in your spine, that nudge to explore, that lifelong suspicion that the history books left something out. That was them, still whispering, still waiting. And now you've heard them. And they know. You step out of the chamber, blinking against the moonlight. The air feels different now, cooler, yes, but also thicker, like you're walking underwater, like gravity's suddenly more interested in you. You pause for a second, hand on the stone doorway, and glance back inside. Still quiet, still calm, but something lingers in that space, something aware, something watching. You don't feel threatened, but you do feel seen. And there's no going back from that. The key, the tool, the translator, it's changed again. It no longer pulses randomly. Instead, it vibrates gently whenever you face a particular direction, a guidance system, or a summons. You follow it. The path it nudges you toward isn't obvious. It threads you through broken terrain, between clusters of jagged rocks and over ridges that collapse into quiet valleys. You're not exactly sure how far you've come, but time feels irrelevant now, like you've slipped out of hours and into epochs. Eventually, you reach a flat clearing bordered by cliffs. In the center, barely lit by starlight, stands a formation so symmetrical it makes your teeth ache. A dome. Half buried in stone, it rises only a few meters above the surface, but what's visible is perfect, polished, seamless, and studded with flecks of metal that catch the light just enough to betray their presence. It looks less like something that was built and more like something that was grown. You walk toward it slowly. The translator in your hand begins to glow again. As you approach, a narrow seam appears across the surface of the dome, a barely visible line that wasn't there before. Then, with a faint click, a section of the dome peels open in absolute silence, revealing a narrow passage sloping downward. No fanfare, no booming voice welcoming you to level 2. Just a gentle invitation. You hesitate. Of course you do. Any sane person would hesitate. But then again, sane people usually don't find themselves wandering through forgotten deserts holding alien door keys. So you step inside. The slope is shallow but long, lit only by dim reflections from the translator in your hand. The walls are not carved stone, but something smoother, like petrified resin. You trail your hand along it as you descend, and for a moment you feel something beneath your fingertips, not texture. Pulse. Not alive, but not dead either. The tunnel curves and then opens into a chamber. And this one isn't a ruin. It's pristine. The floor glows faintly beneath your feet, light diffused through translucent panels. The walls curve gently upward, covered in etched symbols, patterns that shift when you look directly at them. Your mind keeps trying to make sense of it. This is a control room. This is a temple. This is a memory bank. All three are wrong and all three are right. In the center of the room is a pedestal. Floating above it, yes, actually floating, is a crystal, not spinning, just suspended, humming with faint internal light. You walk toward it. You don't need to be told what to do. You hold the translator out. The moment you do, the crystal reacts. Not explosively, just a pulse of light, a ripple through the room. The symbols along the walls shift, arranging themselves into something clearer. And then, across the far wall, a projection flickers to life. Not images, not video, memory. You feel it more than see it. People tall, graceful, dressed in materials that shimmer like woven mist, speaking in symbols, moving with purpose, building. You see towers rise, not brick by brick, but in waves, matter rearranged through resonance. You see energy harnessed not through wires, but through alignment. Geometries designed not for function alone, but for harmony with the Earth's own hum. This was a civilization not based on domination, but symbiosis. And it worked. Until it didn't. The projection shifts. The skis darken. You feel panic ripple through the memory. Something changed. Not war. Not rebellion, something environmental or cosmic, a breach in the pattern, a resonance gone rogue. The very systems that powered their world began to unravel. They tried to fix it. They couldn't. So they did the only thing left. They encoded themselves into the planet. Not in DNA, not in stone alone, but in frequency. Their knowledge, their presence, their warning. All of it hidden in sacred geometries, in aligned sights, in myths designed to outlive fire, flood, and forgetting. You stagger backward. The projection fades. The translator in your hand dims again. You know now, this civilization, call it whatever you want, wasn't lost because it failed. It was lost because it refused to fall apart. It scattered itself deliberately into fragments that could someday be recovered. And you just tripped over one of them. You sit on the floor, the glow beneath you warm and steady. No voices, no screens, just a gentle hum like the universe clearing its throat. Historians still argue whether humanity, great leap moments, agriculture, writing, astronomy, architecture, happened organically or were accelerated by unknown influences. But maybe they weren't gifts from above. Maybe they were triggers, part of a release memory, seeded long ago by those who knew we'd need it when the cycle began again. You lie back, staring up at the softly curving ceiling. The air is cool and still. And the silence now, it doesn't feel empty. It feels expectant. As if someone, has been waiting for you to remember. You don't remember falling asleep, but when you open your eyes, you're still inside the dome, still lying on the gently glowing floor, still wrapped in the soft hum that feels more like a lullaby than electricity. Time hasn't passed in the usual way. There's no stiffness in your limbs, no dry mouth, no sense of having missed anything. Only that strange, persistent feeling of being watched by something benevolent, patient, maybe even proud. You sit up slowly. The pedestal is still there. The floating crystal has gone dim, its light now barely perceptible, a resting heartbeat instead of an active broadcast. Whatever it wanted to show you, it did. Now it's your move. You stand and notice something new. The translator in your pocket, your now familiar pulsing companion, has changed again. It's still warm, still humming, but now it bears a mark on its surface. Not engraved, but grown like a scar that forms overnight. It's the tree again. The mirrored tree, but it's more detailed now. Roots curling into what look like star maps and branches twisting into geometric spirals. The symbol isn't just decorative, it's a map. You turn slowly, letting the shape in your hand guide you, and as your body aligns with one specific direction, the device pulses hard. Once, like a confirmation. That way, the chamber's entrance is still open. As you walk out, you look back only once, and the moment you cross the threshold, the doorway seals silently behind you. The dome is once again featureless, seamless, inert, at least to anyone who doesn't know how to ask the right questions. You descend the slope, guided now not by instinct but by a clear path only you can feel. And soon, the landscape changes again. The sand gives way to stone, and the stone becomes cut stone. Fitted, aligned, purposeful. And there, rising from the rock like a fossil of ambition, is a city. Not modern, not ruined, not even ancient in the usual sense. Just wrong. It shouldn't be here. No one talks about this place. No flights pass over it. No expeditions chart it. But it's here. You walk into it like a trespasser in someone else's dream. Towering walls but no fortifications. Wide avenues but no carts or wheel ruts. Doorways but no doors. Windows but no glass. It's as if the city was never meant to keep anything in or out. The buildings are built from materials you can't name. They shimmer faintly in the light, like nacre or cooled lava. Some of the towers twist skyward in impossible curves, growing like plants toward a sun that no longer matters. And everywhere are the symbols. The tree, the circle, the line. You stop at what might once have been a gathering space, like a plaza or forum. In its center stands a massive obelisk, etched from top to bottom in spiraling lines of script. You run your fingers over it. The text doesn't change, but you do. You start to feel the meaning. Not in words, in sensations. A story, a reminder, an agreement. This was not just a city, it was a library. Not of books, but of frequencies, of architecture built to contain memory. Not by preserving it, but by radiating it. This place isn't dead, it's asleep. Historians still argue whether memory can be stored non-digitally. Whether crystals, for example, could record data the way quartz does in modern timepieces. But what if you didn't store information in devices? What if you stored it in the geometry of space? A city then becomes more than shelter. It becomes a medium, a harmonic vessel, a living song. And now, standing in the heart of this silent city, you feel like you're standing inside a chord, one that was struck long ago and is only now starting to resonate again because you, with your little artifact and open eyes, have become the tuning fork. You wander. You pass doorways that lead to open rooms. No furniture, no writing, just shapes, angles, open skylights that seem to align with constellations that no longer exist. You find a chamber at the city's edge. Inside, a wide, low platform. Above it, a carved ceiling dome, patterned with intersecting spirals and hexagons. In the center of the room, a single pedestal like the one you saw in the underground dome, but this one's inactive, cold, dusty. Still, the translator in your pocket pulses. You place it in the pedestal slot. A low tone hums through the chamber. Not loud, not musical. Just true. The ceiling above flickers. Then it shows the earth. but not the one you know. This is Earth before the continents shifted into their current places, before the sea rose, before the poles settled where they are now. You see it rotate, slow and beautiful. Then, blinking like beacons, the network appears, dozens, maybe hundreds of nodes. Each one pulsing in rhythm, each one connected. Then they begin to fail. One by one, the pulses fade. Some violently, blinking out in flares, others slowly, dimming like candles in a growing wind. Finally, only a few remain. Your current location, and several others scattered across the globe. Still pulsing, still active, still waiting. The projection fades. The translator clicks softly in its slot, then goes still. But you're not afraid. You understand now. This isn't just a civilization you're uncovering. It's a network of inheritance. A backup of humanity, saved not in servers, but in stone and resonance in place. And some of those places still work. Which means there may be others like you out there, dreamers, wanderers, people who stumbled into ruins and woke something up, people who didn't laugh off the fringe theories, people who kept asking questions long after the textbook said, "That's all there is." You step back into the fading light of the plaza. The sky is beginning to pale, dawn maybe, or something close enough to pass for it in this dreamlike place. And now you know your path. Because if this city is still talking, then so are the others. And you intend to listen. All of them. You leave the city behind. Not with regret, not even with reluctance, just the quiet understanding that it's done what it was meant to do. It woke you up. You don't look back, you don't need to. Because something's already calling you forward. The translator in your hand no longer pulses erratically. It glows now, a soft, steady light, like it knows where it's going and is trying not to overwhelm you with excitement. You're starting to suspect it's a little smug. The terrain changes again. The stone fades into rich, dark earth. Green returns first in sparse brush, then in short, stubborn grasses that crunch underfoot. The air is different here, heavier, wetter, and the sky hangs lower, thick with clouds that hint at rainfall long overdue. You're heading toward the foothills now, where cliffs rise in gentle rolls and the air hums with something deeper than weather. You're not surprised when the trees appear, gnarled and ancient, roots clawing through rock like they've been holding the earth together by sheer stubbornness. One tree in particular stops you. It's enormous, twisted and massive, bark like cracked armor, limbs reaching out as though to grasp the clouds. But it's not just the scale that makes you stop, it's the stone at its base. Carved, shaped, not fallen here but placed. And on its surface, shallow but unmistakable, the mirrored tree glyph. Above it, the real tree looms like an exclamation point. You step closer and rest your hand on the stone. The translator pulses once, then projects something upward. Not an image this time. A field. Lines of energy curl into the air, wrapping the tree, weaving upward like a 3D map rendered in golden light. It's a lattice of connection, roots linking to soil, limbs aligning with constellations, energy spiraling both into and out of the earth. You realize this tree isn't just living. It's listening. And for a long, slow moment, you are too. You don't hear words, you don't see visions, but you feel something immense pass through you, as though you've stepped into a living antenna. A relay point, one of the few still functioning. And then it begins. The air vibrates softly. Around you, shapes begin to emerge from the trees, not people, not animals. Structures, almost completely overgrown. What you thought were boulders and roots begin to show angles, corners, surfaces too flat to be natural. You crouch and brush aside a layer of moss, a slab of stone, then another, a stairwell partially collapsed, leading downward into darkness. The translator pulses. You follow. Inside, it's cooler than you expected. No moisture, just that same dry, still air you've come to associate with forgotten brilliance. The staircase winds into a low chamber, and here, at last, you find something completely new. A wall covered not in symbols, but in mirrors. Not reflective glass, something else. A surface that seems to shift when you move, not your reflection, but your form, your outline. You step closer, and there you are. But not quite. The version of you in the mirror flickers. You raise your hand, so does it, but the delay is just off, like an echo with bad timing. Then the surface ripples, and you are gone. In your place, a figure stands. Tall, humanoid, but not human. Not alien either, just different, as though evolution took a left turn before arriving at Homo sapiens. The figure looks at you, expressionless but not blank. You feel something behind your eyes, not pain, not pressure, connection. You reach toward the mirror, and the translator flares in your hand, this time projecting a glyph directly onto the mirror's surface. The tree, the circle, the line. Then more symbols bloom outward, dozens, hundreds, spilling across the wall in concentric rings of meaning. They don't translate into words, you feel them as a rush of emotion. This is not a message for your mind. It's for your memory. You see them. The builders. Not alien saviors, not gods, not time travelers in silver jumpsuits. Us. Different but us. Humans older than history allows, taller, stranger, harmonized with the planet in ways we've long forgotten. You see them move in unison, singing to stone, lifting monoliths not with machines but with frequency, with rhythm, with resonance. You see them build this place. You see them bury it. And you see the moment they realized the end was coming. Not a war, not a plague. A wobble. Something destabilizing the Earth's field. The grid they'd woven into the planet, connecting all their sites, their monuments, their knowledge, began to falter. Their answer wasn't panic. It was planning. They broke their network into parts, encoded memory into geometry, left themselves in the very bones of the world, waiting for someone who could feel the hum. The mirror dims. You exhale. You're not crying. Not exactly. Just overwhelmed. Imagine being told the Earth is not just alive, but self-aware, and you've been walking across its memory all your life. The mirror pulses once more, then shows one last image. A map. Not of this site, of the others. More nodes, more keys, still active, still waiting. The translator stores the map. You don't ask how, you don't need to. You already know what comes next. This isn't the end of your journey, it's the activation. You're not just a visitor anymore. You've been initiated. And this isn't just your story. It's ours. You emerge from the chamber beneath the tree just as the sun begins to rise. A soft golden light washes over the landscape, painting the rocks and leaves with a color that only seems to exist for the first 5 minutes of morning. Everything smells alive, earthy and electric, like the planet is stretching its limbs after a very long nap. You stop and take it in. The tree towers behind you, its limbs creaking gently in the windless dawn, like it's whispering secrets only the ground can hear. You turn back and place one hand against its bark, not to say goodbye, but to say thank you. Not in words, in presence. You've always felt like something was missing, haven't you? Some strange emptiness in the background of your life, like you were born with a puzzle piece still in the box, but no one ever told you what the picture was supposed to be. Like the world handed you a manual, but the first half was torn out. And now, in a jungle-turned library-turned-antenna, you've recovered a few lost pages. The map glows faintly in your hand. It pulses not with urgency, but with patience. The next site is far, across oceans, across languages, across time zones. But it's not the distance that matters. It's the pattern. Because now, finally, you see it. You remember the debate, the rolling academic shrug. Why do so many cultures build in triangles? Why pyramids? Why circles aligned with solstices? Why repeating mathematical constants in places that had no contact? And the answer is stupidly simple. Because they did have contact. Not by boat, not by trade. By remembrance. You begin to walk again, but it's different now. The ground beneath your feet feels more cooperative, not resisting, not neutral, almost aware, as if the earth itself has decided you've earned a backstage pass. Every leaf looks like a letter, every gust of wind like punctuation. As the forest thins and you reach higher ground, your thoughts drift again to the scattered echoes of the unknown civilization, their strange, deliberate silence. Not wiped out, not extinct, just withdrawn. Historians still argue whether civilizations vanish by disaster or decline, whether it's climate, war, plague, or just people forgetting how to want the same things. But what if a civilization didn't fade? What if it chose to vanish? Not in shame, in strategy. Imagine you had knowledge that could shape the future. Not just tech, not just science, something more fundamental, a way of living that harmonized biology, consciousness, and the very resonance of matter itself. And imagine you realized humanity wasn't ready. What would you do? You'd scatter it. You'd plant breadcrumbs. You tell your children stories about sky gods and trees of life, and floods and towers and great falls and second chances. And you'd leave behind keys, not in vaults but in the structure of things. Pyramids, stone circles, frequencies, dreams. You crest a ridge and sit down on a warm boulder, just as the sun crowns the horizon. The light catches the translator in your hand and it flickers in response, not a function, a greeting. And that's when the sky does something strange. It sings, just briefly, like a chord played far away. You might have called it tinnitus once, but now you know better. It's the grid, and it's waking up. The vibration is faint, not in the air, but in your teeth. Like every molar has tuned itself to the same low frequency. You close your eyes and let it wash over you. It's not communication exactly, not language. Just presence. Like the world is humming along with you. And maybe, just maybe, that was always the point. You open your eyes again and take in the landscape. There's no signpost, no guide, but the map in your hand tells you exactly where to go next. You think of the others, those who must be finding their own fragments, quiet people, curious people. You wonder if somewhere across the world someone else is waking up to the same pattern, maybe right now. Maybe they're touching stone, or water, or light, and feeling that same ancient hum pass through them like a thread being pulled taut. You remember the mirrored tree, roots and branches symmetrical, looping through space and time like some interdimensional fractal. And it finally clicks. They weren't worshiping a tree. They were describing a system. Above and below. Matter and energy. Past and future. It was never just about survival. It was about synchronization. The reason our world feels so off lately. It's out of tune. And maybe, just maybe, what they left behind wasn't meant to save us from extinction. It was meant to bring us back into harmony. You sit quietly for a long time, just letting the breeze carry that thought around your skull like incense in a temple. This civilization didn't want to be remembered like a statue or a monument. They wanted to be reactivated. Through us. Through dreamers. Through those of us strange enough to keep asking questions no one else wants to hear out loud. You smile, because now you know the truth. The world didn't start with Mesopotamia. It didn't start with Egypt. It didn't start with the invention of the wheel or the first domesticated goat. The world started before all that. With intention, with light, with geometry. And now, as the wind carries birdsong through the hills and your bones hum in response, you're finally ready to listen. You reach into your bag, unfold the map. The next node is waiting. But for now, just breathe. Let it settle. You've remembered enough for one night. The rest, it's already inside you. And when you wake, you'll know where to go. You wake with the map still unfolded in your lap, the morning light soft and indifferent, casting slow-moving shadows across the paper. Or rather, what looks like paper. The map doesn't age, doesn't tear. The more you look at it, the less you're convinced it was made with hands at all. It's warm to the touch, faintly humming, almost like it's breathing, calm and subtle, as if it's just as alive as everything else you've uncovered. The next node waits far across the ocean. You don't know how you'll get there yet, plane, boat, train, dream, but the route is marked clearly. One of the pulses leads to an ancient plateau high in the Andes. The name that comes to mind before you even look it up, Tiahuanaco. You've never been there, but the sound of the word tastes familiar in your mouth, like you've spoken it before. Maybe not in this life, maybe not out loud. The translator pulses, not impatiently, just a quiet nudge. Time to move again. Cut to a high-altitude sun. Thin air, pale sky, you've arrived. You stand now among stones that make no sense. Tiahuanaco isn't just old, it's anachronistic, like it was built with the stubborn refusal to obey the physics of its age. Enormous stone blocks weighing up to 100 tons, fitted together without mortar, interlocked like 3D puzzles made for hands we no longer have. The centerpiece here is the gateway of the sun. You've seen photos, maybe. A massive stone archway carved from a single slab of andesite, weighing over 10 tons, decorated with glyphs that no one ever managed to decode. Some say it depicts the god Viracocha. Others say it's a calendar. Some insist it's a warning or a mirror. Historians still argue whether it's been moved from its original position, or if the entire complex is just a fragment of something far grander, swallowed by time, floods, or silence. But you're not here for the tour. You approach the gateway, translator in hand. And sure enough, it pulses harder the closer you get. There's a slot, just beneath the carved figure at the top of the arch. You insert the device. Nothing explodes. The stone doesn't open like a sci-fi door. Instead, the sunlight bends. You blink. Not metaphor, not poetics. The light around you refracts in a way that makes your stomach lurch. For just a second, the shadow of the gateway stretches too far, curls inward, twists like a Möbius strip folding in on itself. The world flutters, and then settles. Except it's not quite the same. The air is thicker. The glyphs on the gateway shimmer faintly, their patterns shifting like sand in water. You reach out, touch one of the symbols, and it's warm. That's when the figures appear. Not in the flesh, in the shadows. On the rocks on the surrounding walls, silhouettes, tall, graceful, the same elongated skulls you saw hinted at in the desert statue, but not monstrous, not alien. Just older, like prototypes of humanity left behind before we were ready to carry the full load of memory. They're not moving, they're standing, watching not with menace but with the stillness of guards or teachers. You hear no voice, but you feel the download. This place was once a transmitter, a tuning fork. And the figure on the gateway, often interpreted as a god, it is. It's a guide, a conductor. The central symbol on its headdress, often dismissed as a sun disk, begins to spin softly. The translator in your hand vibrates and you feel it again. That deep internal chord, as if a note you've never heard is vibrating in your chest, and you somehow know the frequency. You see the world again, but not as it is. As it was. The continent shaped differently. A landmass in the middle of the Atlantic, not quite Atlantis, but close. You see pyramids where none currently exist, towers on Antarctica, a ring of sites encircling the planet, each one linked by beams of light that pulse not in a straight line, but in waves. Frequencies. The Earth wasn't just mapped by these people. It was played. An instrument. An orchestra of harmonics built into the crust. And Tihuanaco. A reset point. A node that could reboot the network when too many links went dark. That's what the gateway is. Not a door. A button. But it's not time to press it yet. You pull the translator from the slot. The shimmer stops. The shadow returns to normal, but the world still feels lighter, as though the node was dormant for too long and is only now beginning to stretch. You walk past the gateway, deeper into the complex, past broken walls and fractured monuments that don't seem broken so much as unfinished, like the builders were interrupted halfway through a sentence. That's when you find the stone, H-shaped. So precisely cut it looks 3D printed. One of many found here, those infamous H-blocks that baffle engineers even today. Interlocking features, matching angles, as if they were part of a modular construction system designed for reuse and resonance. And on one of them, the symbol again. Circle, vertical line. But this time with a twist. A dot above the circle. Like a planet with a moon, or an eye with a tear. Or maybe a countdown. Because the more you travel, the more you realize the signs are shifting, growing, updating even. These aren't just remnants. They're interfaces. Not dead tech. Living protocols. And your presence, your touch, your awakening, it's triggering them. One by one, like switches waiting for the right fingerprints. The translator pings again. Next node identified. But before you leave, you look back at the gateway once more. The shadows are gone. The air is still, but carved just beneath the lintel, in a place no one ever bothers to look. A new glyph has appeared. It looks like a face. Yours. You don't speak for a long time. Because what do you even say after that? There's your face, etched into a 10,000-year-old stone archway on a forgotten plateau in the Andes. Not a perfect likeness, not a Renaissance portrait, but the shape of your features, the curve of your brow, the slope of your nose. Stylized, yes, but undeniably you. And it wasn't there before. That's the part that makes your stomach flutter just a little. It appeared after you touched the gate, after you activated the node, not carved, not painted, etched into the stone with perfect precision. Like the stone remembered you, or was waiting for you. You trace it with your fingers. The texture is smooth, as if it's always been there. You don't feel pride. You don't feel fear. What you feel is that strange, gravity-heavy sense of being seen, truly seen, by something that's been around long enough to forget most things and still recognized you on sight. Whatever this is, you're a part of it now. No backing out, not that you'd want to. You turn away, cradling the translator in your palm like a compass that doesn't point north but home. It pulses once softly, not in alarm, not in demand, just reassurance. The next site is farther, a remote outpost in the Pacific, ringed by ocean and silence. You know it by name, of course. Everyone does. Easter Island, or as it once was, Rapa Nui. The trip is long, and by the time you arrive, you feel like you've shed layers of your old self along the way. You're lighter now, mentally and otherwise. The translator has stopped behaving like a passive object and more like a co-pilot. It buzzes sometimes just to remind you it's still listening. And so you walk, past crumbling fences and tourist signs, past the approved trail, past the warnings, until you're alone again with the wind and the long grass and the sky cracked open above you. And there they are. The Maui. Stone heads rising from the hills like thoughts too big to bury. Some stare inland, some face the sea, all of them watch. You've read about them, sure. Massive statues carved by an isolated people, some toppled, some restored, most a mystery. Historians still argue whether they represent ancestors, gods, or something else entirely. Some insist the real surprise isn't the heads, it's that the heads have bodies buried deep beneath the soil. But the theory you're chasing now, it's something different. What if these weren't just statues? What if they were receivers? You approach the nearest one, tall, lichen-streaked, emotionless in a way that doesn't feel dead, just distant. You place your palm against the rough surface and the translator lights up immediately. Then nothing. For a moment. Then you hear it. Faint. A tone. Like a low flute or a pipe organ, or the earth sighing in song. Not from the statue, from beneath it. You kneel, press your ear to the ground. There's a rhythm down there, not mechanical, not electrical, more like a heartbeat, a slow one, a planetary one. The Maui wasn't built for worship. It was built to interface. Your translator confirms it with a pulse, then begins projecting a web of lines in the air before you, not random, structured, a grid wrapping around a globe. The same network you saw in the Andean memory, now updating in real time. The nodes are lighting up. The one in the Andes now pulses bright green. The Easter Island node flickers, then steadies. A connection restored. And around the world, other nodes glow faintly, some steady, others flickering, struggling, but active. You sit back in the grass, staring at the web. This is no longer archaeology. This is maintenance. You're not just discovering lost places. You're reactivating them, one by one. And the Maui, they aren't monuments. They're terminals, ancient ones, each one connected to a root system beneath the surface, some kind of acoustic resonance chamber, a planetary interface that listens for specific frequencies. The song you heard, it's still playing, like a dial tone, waiting for someone to pick up. And maybe, just maybe, someone finally has. As you explore deeper into the hills, you begin to see the placement of the moai differently. They aren't random. They're aligned, not to stars or seasons, but to the other nodes, like antennae aimed across the curvature of the Earth, trying to stay in sync. Some of them face outward for a reason. Not to guard. To listen. To what? Well, that's the question, isn't it? The translator in your hand begins to shift again. This time, it projects something different. A face. Not yours. One of theirs. Not fully human, not threatening, just unfamiliar. And behind it, symbols. Words that feel like sound. And then, a phrase, this time in your language, filtered through whatever decoding magic lives inside the translator. We are not gone, we are waiting. You must choose what comes next. It disappears. You stand there for a while, trying to process what exactly you've just been given. Not an answer, a responsibility. Because if the network is alive, if it's waking up, if the buried systems are slowly powering on again, then someone has to decide what that means. Not just for you, for everyone. You walk back to the nearest moai and sit beside it as the wind picks up. The clouds roll in heavy over the sea. There's no path forward, not really, but the translator pulses again and the map reappears in your mind's eye. Next node, somewhere in the Indian Ocean. An island barely marked on most maps. Another whisper waiting to be heard. And you're not just listening anymore. You're beginning to speak the language. You leave Rapa Nui with the wind still in your ears and the taste of volcanic stone still at the back of your tongue. The island watches you go, not resentful, not relieved, just observant. You feel like you've been measured and filed into whatever system has been slumbering beneath the surface for millennia. You're part of the architecture now, part of the signal. And the signal wants you in the Indian Ocean. You follow it. Your journey takes you across endless water, tiny specks of land, the kind of navigation that makes you wonder if the planet is smaller than we think, or if you're simply not using normal routes anymore. The translator leads the way, its glow becoming more confident, more alive. You no longer need maps or even coordinates. You feel it now. The pull, the connection. You land on an island with no name. At least not on any current charts. Once maybe it was part of something bigger. Now it's just a fragment of something forgotten. You step off the boat. No dock, no port, no customs. Just jagged rocks and thick jungle and that familiar, stomach-deep hum that tells you, this is it. You push through the undergrowth, branches slapping against your arms, vines curling like curious fingers around your wrists. The trees here grow wrong, not broken, not sick, just bent, as if shaped by winds that don't exist anymore. The path ahead isn't carved, but it's undeniably present. The forest parts for you, not dramatically, just enough. The translator pulses stronger now. Then silence. No birdsong. No insects. Just stillness. And then you see it. A stone structure, sunken and warped, covered in moss so thick it looks like upholstery. The shape is octagonal, 8 sides, each inscribed with symbols now familiar to you. The mirrored tree, the circle and line, and beneath them new ones, glyphs that seem to shift depending on your angle, like visual puzzles waiting for your brain to catch up. You step inside. The floor dips downward, forming a shallow spiral. Not just a design, it's intentional. As you walk the curve, you feel it again, the tuning, your heart syncing with the architecture, the air changing in density with each step. At the center is a small stone basin filled with black sand. Here we go again. You kneel. The translator activates on its own. The sand stirs, not dramatically, just the tiniest ripple, as though something under the surface is turning over, slowly waking. And then the projection begins. Not an image this time. A body. Yours. Floating in the space above the basin like a hologram built from dust and breath. But it's not you exactly. It's a version of you. Something inside you. Not physical, architectural. It's showing you your structure. And then it starts mapping it. Overlaying ancient glyphs across your limbs, your skull, your spine. Energy channels, pressure points, chords that vibrate not with blood, but with frequency. This place isn't a shrine. It's a scanner. You're being logged, indexed, attuned. You should feel fear, but all you feel is clarity. Because this is what the builders did. They weren't just creating networks in stone and soil. They were building networks in people. They embedded memory in blood, in bone, in breath. Historians still argue whether ancient burial rituals were symbolic or spiritual, whether aligning a body with a solstice or equinox was superstition or science. But here, in this stone chamber on a forgotten island, the debate feels laughable. They weren't honoring the dead. They were tuning the living. You watch as your reflection, your resonant self, absorbs the markings, the geometry, the intention. Your eyes flash with light that doesn't blind. Your breath syncs with a rhythm you didn't know you had. And then, just like that, the image collapses. The basin is still. The air returns to silence. But something inside you has changed. Permanently. You sit back, pulse steady, translator now glowing with a deep, steady hue, violet, soft, and profound. The island itself seems to exhale, like it's been holding its breath since the last person passed through here, however many centuries or cycles ago. As you walk back out into the light, the sun pierces through the canopy in angled beams, hitting stones in deliberate ways. You realize the architecture here isn't just decorative, it's active, responsive. Everything was placed for sound, for light, for body. And the more you move through it, the more the island moves with you. Your presence completes it. You follow the spiral path back to the edge of the structure and find a low stone bench, half covered in vines. You clear it off and sit. Breathe. Let the hum settle again. Because now you're not just a traveler on a mythological scavenger hunt. You're a node. The network isn't just awakening through the earth. It's awakening through you. The map reactivates. New nodes pulse softly. One in Greenland beneath the ice. Another in the Congo Basin, hidden in foliage thicker than anything you've faced. One more deep under the sea. And then one more blink. This one isn't a node. It's moving. Not on the Earth. Above it. Orbiting. A satellite. Or a station. Or a message waiting to land. The translator offers no explanation. But the meaning arrives anyway. This wasn't just a network to store memory. It was a warning system. And now that enough of the Earth nodes are reactivating, the Sky one has noticed. You don't know what that means yet, but you do know the timing isn't an accident. This civilization didn't scatter its knowledge to be found randomly. It's staged it, layer by layer, activation by activation, and you've reached the layer that stares back from the stars. You stand slowly, feel the island releasing you. It has nothing more to say. But you do. You look up through the canopy at the pale blue sky, and you whisper to whoever is listening, "I'm ready," because you are. And whatever is next, it's already on its way. You leave the island by moonlight. No farewell, no glowing symbols in the sand, no vines curling dramatically to hold you back, just the quiet sense of completion, a silence that says, "Good, now go." You ride in a small boat across dark water. No engine, just the lapping of oars and the gentle pull of a current that knows more about your journey than you do. The translator rests in your lap, no longer poolsing wildly but steady, assured, like it's no longer trying to convince you of anything. You've passed that threshold. You're a participant now. And the map has changed again. Gone are the long stretches between destinations. Now it's dense, layered, nodes upon nodes, overlapping paths, like a symphony swelling toward its climax, each instrument entering the harmony with increasing urgency. But one node pulses brighter than the others. Greenland. Under the ice. The thought makes your breath catch a little, doesn't it? Frozen land, blank on maps, a place so massive and so inaccessible that even satellites seem to shrug and say, "Good luck." But now that you're looking through this other lens, the lens of the builders, the network, the signal, you realize that maybe Greenland isn't barren. Maybe it's hiding something. You arrive days later, or hours, time blurs now. You're standing on a frozen plain. Wind howls across the ice in long, low moans. The sky is vast and white, a blank dome that feels both too close and too far. You're not alone, but there are no people, just the translator, and that low hum now ever present in your bones. A drone carries you the last few miles. Not your drone, not your gear. It met you at the research outpost like it had been waiting, like someone or something sent it ahead to retrieve you. It doesn't speak. It doesn't broadcast. It simply flies. And beneath you, the ice starts to shift. Not crack, just chain. The white surface turns smooth, glassy, then dark, like you're flying over a black sea frozen in a single breath. And then you see it. A circle, perfect and wide, not carved into the ice, but revealed. A dome seamless, buried who knows how deep, only the top edge visible. It looks ancient and intact. The drone sets you down. You approach the dome slowly, translator in hand. It begins to vibrate, not with excitement, with caution, like it's bracing for something heavy, like a door is about to open that no one's walked through in a very, very long time. You reach out and touch the surface. It's warm. In Greenland. In negative temperatures. And as soon as your skin makes contact, the dome responds. Not with movement, with memory. The ice around you vanishes, not physically, but in sight. A projection fills your vision, not in the air, but behind your eyes. You're looking down now, from above, at the earth, a long time ago, before the cities, before the borders, before the myths. And below you, glowing like embers under skin, is the network. It pulses across the continents, bright nodes in sacred valleys, under pyramids inside mountains, deep in oceans. Then a flicker, a fracture, not man-made, not deliberate, a cosmic event. The Earth tilts ever so slightly. Its magnetic field wavers. And the network screams. You feel the feedback. Energy overloads. Nodes burn out. Some structures collapse. Some vanish into the sea. The system doesn't crash, it protects itself. Goes dormant. Splits its memory across space. And you watch as the last active nodes send a signal upward, into orbit. A satellite or a vault or a final observer. Still circling. Still waiting for the reboot. And now, that signal is coming back down. Because you have activated enough of the ground nodes to trigger it. The projection fades. The ice returns. And the dome beneath your hand begins to shift. A spiral seam appears. A hatch opens. You step inside. The interior is impossible. Not cold, not warm, not technological in the way we think. The walls shimmer not like metal but like liquid held in place by agreement. The architecture is curved, organic. Every surface flows into the next. The light has no source, but everything is softly lit. In the center of the chamber, a chair. No, not a chair. A cradle. It looks built for a human, but not for comfort, for alignment. You step closer and the translator pulls toward it. You place it into a small depression, and suddenly the air tightens. Symbols rise around you. Not projected. Not floating. They just exist, etched in space. You understand immediately, this isn't a room. It's a console. And you're the interface. As you sit, because of course you do, the walls begin to sing. A low harmonic resonance fills the chamber. Your breath syncs with it. Your thoughts quiet. Your spine tingles not unpleasantly. It's like being tuned from the inside out. And then the symbols begin to shift. You see Earth. Then the network. Then a warning. A node has gone dark. Not destroyed. Not inactive. Blocked. The signal can't get through. And without that connection, the system can't complete. You don't know where the node is yet. But the map changes, shrinks, rotates. Focuses on a region. The Middle East. Somewhere hidden beneath the noise of modernity. A location masked by chaos, buried by history. Your translator pings softly. Another path opens. One more node. The last one. And then the sky. You stand slowly. Your body feels heavier now, but not tired. Charged. You exit the dome into the cold. The hatch closes silently behind you. The wind picks up, but this time it sounds different. Like applause. Or a warning. You don't know what happens when the final node activates. You just know it's waiting. And whatever's in orbit, it's listening. You descend from the ice like someone walking back into a dream they never meant to wake from. The air seems softer now, even in Greenland. The wind still howls, but its tone has changed. Less like resistance, more like breath. You feel it everywhere now, that pulse beneath the surface, like the planet has a heartbeat and you've just learned how to hear it. The map updates before your boots even touch solid ground. And there it is. The final node. Not hidden, not disguised. Just forgotten. You see it clearly now, just south of modern Baghdad. A region torn apart by centuries of conflict, conquest, dust, and denial. A place so thick with myth and blood that no one even bothers to dig anymore. They assume everything worth finding has already been found. You know better. You make the journey quietly. No one stops you. The translator, now worn into the shape of your palm, handles everything. It doesn't open doors, it removes them. Border checks, permissions, GPS scrambling, you don't even question it now. You just go. And when you arrive, somewhere on the outskirts of an unremarkable village, you feel it before you see it. The air is too still, the soil too light. You kneel in the dust, press your hand to the ground, and the earth responds. It doesn't rumble, doesn't quake. It releases. The sand loosens beneath your fingers, and a symbol begins to appear, etched into stone just centimeters below the surface. Not carved by hand, not made by any tool you know. It's your old friend, the circle, the line, but now it's joined by a crescent, a cradle shape, a receiving bowl. The final node isn't just a sight. It's a receiver, and it's time to open it. You dig with your hands, no shovel, no crew, just instinct and the kind of momentum that builds when you're 5 seconds away from completing a cycle that started before the invention of paper. The stones beneath are fitted perfectly, polished even after all these centuries of neglect. You uncover a ramp, descending diagonally, sharp and smooth. The translator pulses once. Not a glow, a tone, like a breath drawn in before a song. You step into the passage, and the light disappears behind you. But you don't need it. The walls themselves emit a soft gold, like they remember daylight and are choosing to simulate it just for you. Every step feels choreographed. You've never been here, but your feet know where to go. And then you reach the chamber. It's circular, low ceiling, no furniture, no altar, just a single stone platform at the center. On the far wall, etched across the smooth sandstone surface, are the faces. Hundreds of them. Not statues, not paintings, just impressions. Like the memory of a face pressed into warm stone and cooled over time. Different features, different cultures, different eras. But they all look familiar. Because they're all you. Not literally, but the idea of you. Echoes of the people who found this place before you. Each one left a mark. And now, it's your turn. The translator guides you to the center. No words, no prompts, just a feeling, place it here. You set it on the platform. And the room inhales. The stone vibrates, the walls flicker. And then the faces animate. Not like a movie. Like memory. Each one lights up in turn, projecting brief flashes. A city by the sea, a tower of glass, a forest that glows under moonlight, a skyship sailing through a storm. Images, echoes, instructions. You feel them land inside you. Not as knowledge, as recognition. The node completes. The room quiets. And then the map reappears, projected not from the translator this time, but from the stone itself. You see the network again. Every node glowing. Every connection humming. And above it all, now descending slowly, the object. It was never a satellite. Not exactly. It's a vessel. Drifting in orbit, waiting, listening. Now moving. Toward Earth. And now it's your turn to ask the question everyone's been afraid to ask. Is it returning to help? Or to judge? Because here's the thing no one ever wants to say out loud. Advanced civilizations don't vanish without reason. They don't leave behind warning systems and buried receivers and harmonic geometry just for fun. They do it because something went wrong. Terribly wrong. And maybe this civilization didn't die in silence. Maybe they knew they'd be back. Maybe they knew they had to come back. You step away from the platform, the room still glowing gently behind you. As you exit the chamber, the translator dissolves, not in a dramatic puff of light, but like salt in water. It was never separate from you. It was just the bridge. And the bridge is no longer needed. Because you're no longer a seeker. You're now a part of the system. As you step into daylight again, you see the first flash in the sky. Bright white silent. The stars are shifting. Not in chaos. In alignment. The vessel is coming into position. The final node has broadcast its signal. And the planet, at least the parts of it that can still hear, is responding. You place your hand on the earth, and it hums back. The cycle has closed. But the story, it's just about to open again. You sleep that night under the open sky. No tent, no fire, just the earth beneath your back and the stars overhead. Except they don't look like stars anymore. They look like beacons, like eyes, like memory. The vessel above you isn't moving fast, it's packing itself, descending through orbit like an old friend easing into a conversation. No roaring thrusters, no panic, just presence, like it's waiting for you to catch up emotionally to what you already know logically. It's not invading, it's returning. And somehow you're not afraid. The ancient systems you've reactivated, the nodes, the tones, the faces, they were preparing for this. You were never meant to stop it. You were meant to complete it. You drift off eventually, half listening to the hum of the ground beneath you, still resonating from the final activation. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. Wind skates gently across the dunes. The earth is calm. Too calm. When you wake, the sun has barely begun its rise, but it's not light that wakes you. It's rhythm. A sound not loud but bone deep. You sit up, and it's everywhere. A vibration in the ground, in the air, in your chest. You stand slowly, watching the sky. Above you, the vessel has changed shape. It no longer looks like a satellite. Now you can see its structure, layered rings like a mandala rotating slowly in space. Lights moving within, not erratic but coordinated, measured. You get the sense it's not a machine. It's a message, a final interface, a teacher, or a test. The thought hits you quietly. What if this was never about remembering the past? What if the ancient civilization didn't bury its knowledge because it had nowhere else to put it? What if it did so because it wanted us to earn it? This global scavenger hunt through stone, silence, and symbols was never just for nostalgia. It was an exam, a calibration. A way to ask, are you ready now? And maybe now you are. The map that once projected from the translator now appears in your mind without prompting. You don't need devices anymore. You are the device. The full network shines behind your closed eyelids, like neurons reconnecting in the skull of a planet. You feel every node. Puma Punku, Göbekli Tepe, the Yonaguni Monument, Rapa Nui, the polar station beneath Greenland, the memory field under the Indian Ocean, all of them vibrating now in harmonic sync. And above them, the vessel tuning itself to the Earth's frequency. You walk, without reason, without resistance. The ground rises to meet your feet, the sand giving just enough with every step, as if it knows you're coming and doesn't want to get in the way. You crest a ridge and see it, your destination. Not a temple, not a monument, just a circle of stones. Simple, understated, perfectly aligned with the vessel now overhead. Each stone bears a glyph you've seen before. The mirrored tree, the circle and line, but also new symbols. Ones you've never studied, never been shown. Yet you understand them immediately. They are names, not in letters, not in sound, but in resonance. These are the names of the others, the ones like you. You walk into the circle, feel the air condense slightly, like stepping into a pressure dome. And in the center, a single stone slab. You kneel and place your hand upon it. There's no translation, no projection, just sensation. A rush, like 1,000 voices speaking all at once, but instead of noise, it feels like meaning poured directly into your bloodstream. You see their faces, the architects, the ones who came before. They weren't giants or aliens or gods. They were humans. Not Homo sapiens, perhaps, not exactly, but cousins, sisters, branches of our own lineage that learned how to live in sync with the earth, who built not for power but for harmony. And when the resonance failed, when a cosmic event disrupted their calibration, they didn't panic. They prepared. They scattered themselves into the bones of the world, encoded memory into matter, encoded intention into myths. And now, they're waking back up. Through you. You lie back against the slab. Close your eyes. And that's when you hear it. The voice. Not male, not female. Not language. Just clarity. It says, your world is no longer asleep. We did not come to fix it. We came to witness what you will choose to do with it. And then silence. The vessel above you completes its descent, not to land but to align. It casts no shadow. It emits no sound. But you feel its attention. On you. On all of us. Because now the question is no longer what happened to them. Now the question is what happens next to us. You sit up. The circle of stones is glowing faintly. So are your palms. You're not the only one. Somewhere others are rising too. Connected, awake, listening. And the planet, it's listening too. Everything the builders left behind, the monuments, the mirrors, the mechanisms, it wasn't to control the future. It was to invite us into it. The final node wasn't a last step. It was an opening, a threshold. And now, you're on the other side. You don't know how long you sit there. Could be minutes, could be hours. Time, by this point, has politely excused itself from your understanding of the world. The light around you changes, but not in the way sunlight does. It's internal now. Everything glows slightly. Not bright, just alive. Every stone, every leaf. Even your skin, which shimmers faintly under the sky that's no longer just blue. You're not alone. You can feel them. The others, scattered across the world, each of them having followed the same song, the same pulse, the same suspicion that history was hiding something worth listening to. You don't know their names. You don't need to. The names were never the point. The resonance is. You reach out not with your hands but with something deeper, a sense, a presence. And someone reaches back. Then another. Then a dozen more. A gentle network not built by fiber optics or silicon but by memory, will, intention, like tuning forks finally struck in the same breath. The vessel above hums once. Low. Beautiful. You don't hear it with your ears. You feel it in your ribs. It's like being reminded you have a heartbeat because someone else is matching it. And then something shifts. Not outside. In you. You see the entire story at once. Not linear. Not bullet-pointed. Just true. You see the origin civilization, an older form of humanity, longer-skulled, wide-eyed, tuned to the Earth's frequencies the way we tune into streaming services. They weren't advanced in the way we think. No cars, no stock markets, but their language was geometry. Their culture was harmony. Their technology wasn't about command, it was about response. They built the grid not to control the planet, but to listen to it, to stabilize it, to live with it, until something changed. A burst, solar, cosmic, nobody's sure. But the frequency was shattered, and everything built on resonance began to fall. So they didn't fight. They preserved. They stored themselves in the earth, in stone, in song, in us. And they waited. Not for conquest, not for revenge, just for recognition. And now, the vessel is lowering, slowly, gracefully. It doesn't touch down but hovers, no more than a kilometer above the surface, directly over the final node. Its light isn't blinding, it's warm, familiar, like the glow of firelight in a house you once lived in but forgot you built. You stand. The stone beneath your feet vibrates gently, not an alarm, an acknowledgement. You've done it. The network is awake, and the vessel is listening. A single beam of light reaches down from the center of its underbelly, white with hints of blue and gold. It doesn't search. It doesn't scan. It simply waits. For you. You step into it. Of course you do. The world goes quiet, but not in absence, in respect. And then you're inside. Not in a ship. Not in a room. In a space. Walls, if they exist, are made of thought. Shapes drift in and out of view, patterns, symbols, spirals, stars. And then in front of you, something forms. Not a being. Not a machine. A mirror. But it doesn't show your reflection. It shows your pattern. Everything you've seen. Everything you've remembered. The frequencies you've awakened. The lives you've brushed against. The story playing backwards and forwards at once. It's not a test. It's an offering. A chance to choose what comes next. Because this was never about learning the past. It was about deciding the future. And here is your final instruction, if you can even call it that. Continue the pattern, but make it your own. Harmony is not sameness. Resonance requires difference. Remember that. The mirror fades, and suddenly, beautifully, you're back. No beam. No fanfare. Just you, standing in the stone circle beneath a sky that now hums gently at the edge of hearing. And for the first time in your life, you understand silence, not as a lack of noise, but as a canvas, an invitation. The vessel remains in the sky, unmoving, a gentle sentinel, not watching, listening. The network is active. The earth is awake. And the civilization that once vanished, it never left. It just stepped aside until we were ready to hear again. You are not chosen. You are not special. You are simply aware. And that is enough. You walk from the circle, not in triumph, but in quiet responsibility, because now you know. This wasn't a story about the past. It was a signal, one that passed through stone and myth and blood and doubt, and finally, landed in a place it could grow again. Inside you,